Brandon sits me down and tells me that his path to buying Skinwalker Ranch started with a phone call in 1995 from one of his former Mormon missionary friends.
And he said, Brandon, you're in the business of selling office buildings, correct? You're in the commercial real estate business, you work with companies. And I said, yeah, of course.
Fugel's friend told him he knew a successful business executive who was looking for office space and asked if Brandon could help.
And I, of course, jumped out of my chair. I remember I was so excited. And I said, absolutely, I can help. So he passed on the number to me. He says, well, his name is Joe Firmage.
Joe Firmage was a senior vice president at Novell, a software company in the 90s. He's also a direct descendant of Mormon prophet Brigham Young. In 1995, during the dot-com bubble, he left Novell to become the founder of US Web, an interactive website design and consultancy company. Firmage needed office space for his new company. Brandon Fugel, a young real estate broker, provided that office space. US Web quickly became very successful, and Joe Firmage was the toast of Silicon Valley. In 1998, Firmage appeared on the cover of Forbes magazine, deemed one of the masters of the new internet universe. Also on the cover was Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. Joe Firmage and his company US Web were rising stars, destined for greatness.
And then, at the height of their success, when they're in the midst of merging with a big global PR firm, agency, he does a story. Joe Firmage came out and said that, number one, in my spare time with my resources, I have learned that the UFO phenomena is real. Then he proceeds to say in this expose that he'd been visited by what he believed to be an alien being, and that he was going to bring the truth forward. And that the physics to enable breakthrough propulsion, travel to the stars, and also free energy was within our grasp.
Firmage's statements on aliens and UFOs caused a lot of embarrassment and controversy for US Web. He was removed as CEO and eventually left the company completely to hunt UFOs and experiment with the technology he believed an alien had given him. Over 10 years later, in 2009, Brandon Fugel was standing in his private airport hangar. He was wondering why there had been no breakthrough aerospace technologies since the invention of the jet engine in 1937.
In the most fundamental ways that we propel and even power our world, we're still dealing with technology that is very old and antiquated. It bothered me, and I became obsessed.
And then he remembered Joe Firmage.
I remembered Joe Firmage and the fact that he'd done this interview and had claimed that he was going to be investing in physics programs. And I thought, well, maybe he has some insights.
Fugel says he contacted Firmage and had a meeting with him.
And I'm whisked into a garage where there are the equivalent of giant tinker toys, it looks like, spinning objects, mechanical, very rudimentary, crude mechanical devices that are being operated. And I see an older, bearded Joe Firmage.
Fugel says Firmage claimed to be on the cusp of inventing humanity-changing anti-gravity technology that would allow humans to travel to the stars.
He said, I believe that you've been led here for a reason. Right here in my garage before you, you are looking at the early proof of concept embodiments of the experiments showing the physics underpinning these new advancements.
Fugel says he was skeptical, but Firmage introduced Fugel to various people who would back up his claims.
He puts me on the phone with General Wesley Clark, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He introduces me to General Clark, says, General Clark, I'd like you to meet Brandon Fugel. He needs to know that there's reality to this. Would you mind telling him your views? And General Clark said, yes, I don't have any problem. Great to meet you. Mr. Fugel, I support Mr. Firmage. I've been following his work closely, and there's truth to it.
A representative for General Clark told me that while the general does not specifically remember this phone conversation with Fugel, he did indeed know Joe Firmage and was in fact interested in Firmage's claims of exotic technology.
So I'm blown away. Here I have former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, head of NATO Command, who's confirming that Joe has been involved with credible activities, confirming that there's some reality.
Next, Firmage put Fugel on the phone with Hal Puthoff and Kit Green, two scientists who had previously worked with the CIA and had a long history of researching otherworldly topics like UFOs and psychic powers. They also vouched for Joe Firmage. This all happens back to back on the same day.
Yeah.
Wesley Clark, Hal Puthoff, Kit Green. So you had a series of phone calls.
Series of phone calls.
Puthoff and Green had long been involved with millionaire Robert Bigelow's hunt for the paranormal. And at the time of this phone call with Fugel in 2009, they were both involved in a now infamous $22 million Pentagon program headed by Bigelow. The program, among other things, allegedly investigated strange phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch, which at the time was owned by Robert Bigelow. Fugel's back-to-back phone conversations with General Clark, Hal Puthoff, and Kit Green, in which they all vouched for Joe Firmage and his endeavors, was enough to convince Fugel.
It completely changed my view of reality. It blew my mind.
Fugel converted his family's private airport hangar into a laboratory, a dedicated space where Firmage could experiment and build his world-changing technology. They created a company called Motion Sciences, and Fugel claims he spent millions of dollars on Firmage's work. These 2010 videos on Joe Firmage's YouTube page show various tests of his invention. Fugel appears in a few of them.
What we're working with is advanced propulsion technology that truly has not been released as of yet. And this patented technology and physics breakthrough is going to change the world as we know it.
This video appears to show a celebratory demonstration of Firmage's device. A happy-looking Fugel stands next to Hal Puthoff. But the smiles and celebrations soon went away. Fugel says it soon became apparent that there was no truth to Firmage's claims.
Within months, it became apparent that Mr. Firmage had some serious issues. The unfortunate truth was that there wasn't any validity to it.
Fugel and Firmage had a falling out. Motion Sciences eventually ceased operations and closed down. In a statement to me, Firmage says that while his invention was showing great progress, its potential was not realized. He claims to have since continued to work on his device, which he now calls the accelerometer, and will reveal it to the world in 2023. Firmage's devices, from 10 years prior, now sit on the bottom shelf of Fugel's sci-fi and fantasy movie collection.